I never expected the call that shattered my life to come during a mundane Tuesday lunch. The office cafeteria buzzed with the usual chatter of coworkers complaining about deadlines. I sat alone, scrolling through emails, until my phone vibrated with an incoming call from an unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something made me answer. "Mr. Ethan Cooper?" a woman's voice asked, clipped and professional. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Detective Jenna Price from the Fairfield Police Department. We need you to come in regarding a sensitive family matter." My heart stuttered. "Is something wrong with my wife or son?" "I'm afraid I can't disclose details over the phone, but it concerns your wife, Lily." My pulse pounded in my ears. After fumbling a vague excuse to my boss, I rushed out. Thoughts of car accidents or emergencies swirled in my head, but the grim tone of the detective's voice suggested something worse. When I arrived at the precinct, Detective Price met me with a tight-lipped expression. Her sharp, calculating eyes didn't soften when she extended her hand. She gestured toward an interrogation room. "Mr. Cooper, I need you to remain calm, but we've arrested your wife, Lily Cooper." "What? Arrested for what?" My voice cracked. "Solicitation of fraud and conspiracy to commit identity theft." I staggered back, gripping the edge of the cold metal table. This couldn't be real. "There must be a mistake," I insisted. "Lily works in marketing." "She wouldn't. We have evidence that says otherwise," the detective interrupted, sliding a folder across the table. "Credit card scams, forged accounts, all connected to her alias." Alias? My mind reeled. Lily, a criminal? This was the woman I shared a home with, the mother of my 5-year-old son, Max. "We've also detained her accomplice, Tyler Cooper." The room spun. Tyler, my estranged half-brother, the family's black sheep. He drifted in and out of our lives, always leaving disaster in his wake. The last time I'd seen him was 2 years ago, when I'd finally told him to stay away from my family after one too many drunken outbursts. I don't understand," I stammered. Detective Price leaned forward, her voice lowering. "Mr. Cooper, I suggest you prepare yourself. Your wife's involvement with Mr. Cooper goes beyond financial crimes." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed Max's daycare. I excused myself and answered, panic clawing at my chest. "Mr. Cooper, no one has picked up Max. Is everything all right?" My mouth went dry. I'd been so consumed by the nightmare unfolding that I'd lost track of time. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. The drive to Max's daycare blurred in a haze of disbelief and dread. I kept hearing Detective Price's voice echoing in my head. "Your wife's involvement goes beyond financial crimes." When I reached the daycare, Max came running into my arms, his small face lighting up with joy. For a moment the world steadied. He was still my little boy, unaware of the wreckage his mother had caused. That night, I lay awake on the living room couch, scrolling through old photos of Lily on my phone. Her wide, infectious smile, her sparkling green eyes, the way she'd look at Max like he was her entire universe. Was it all an act? Had she ever really loved us? Or was she always hiding something? 3 days later, my lawyer, Daniel Prescott, called with an update. "Ethan, you need to come down to my office. There's something you need to see." His tone sent a cold shiver down my spine. When I arrived, Daniel greeted me with a grim nod, sliding a thin USB drive across the desk. "We recovered this from Tyler's laptop." I plugged the drive into the computer, expecting spreadsheets or evidence of fraud. What appeared instead was a folder labeled New Life. Inside were hundreds of photos and videos. Some showed Lily and Tyler together in places I didn't recognize, hotel rooms, exotic beaches, even with fake passports. Others were worse, images of them with Max at a playground, acting like a picture-perfect family. My stomach twisted. They were going to run. With Max? Daniel nodded grimly. "It looks that way." The plan was set. They'd drain every account, vanish, and take Max with them. I gripped the edge of the desk until my knuckles turned white. Does Max know? Did he ever suspect? No. Thankfully, it looks like they hadn't made their move yet. A cold rage settled deep in my chest. They were going to steal everything from me. My money, my life, my son. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. Max stayed blissfully unaware of the chaos erupting around him. I kept his routine steady. School, soccer practice, bedtime stories. But every moment felt like playing house in a life that wasn't mine anymore. Every time I tucked him in, I felt the weight of what could have happened. If I hadn't answered that phone call from the police, he could have vanished with them. My wife and the brother I'd spent my whole life trying to escape. Daniel worked tirelessly on the legal front, securing an emergency custody order while Lily and Tyler rotted in jail. The charges kept piling up. Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. But despite everything, I couldn't relax. Tyler was a snake, and Lily, I still couldn't wrap my head around what she'd become. One evening, I got a call from Detective Price. "Mr. Cooper, we need you to come down to the station. There's been a development." Her voice was sharp but not unkind. She didn't sound like she was delivering bad news, but after everything, I'd learned not to trust anything. I arrived at the precinct, nerves coiled tight in my stomach. Detective Price led me into a dimly lit conference room where a thin man in a cheap suit sat waiting. He had sharp features and a wiry build, his hands folded neatly on the table. "Mr. Cooper, this is U.S. Marshal Henry Ross. He's here regarding Tyler." Ross extended a hand, his grip firm but impersonal. "Mr. Cooper, your brother made a deal." "What kind of deal?" I asked, my voice brittle. "He turned state's evidence against a larger criminal network he's been involved with for years. His cooperation guarantees a reduced sentence, assuming he holds up his end." I felt sick. "What does that have to do with me?" Ross hesitated, exchanging a glance with Detective Price. "Tyler claims your wife wasn't just an accomplice. She was the mastermind. He says she orchestrated the scams, laundered the money, and planned the escape." I laughed bitterly. "You expect me to believe Tyler? He'd sell his own mother to save himself." "Normally, I'd agree," Price interjected. "But he gave us something more. A list of offshore accounts, all in your wife's name." The walls seemed to close in. Every breath felt like inhaling shards of glass. "What happens now?" "We follow the money," Ross said. "But there's more." He pulled out a manila envelope, sliding it across the table. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were printed emails and encrypted messages, plans, coordinates, even surveillance photos of me and Max. Every detail of our lives laid out like a twisted blueprint. "She was watching us?" I whispered, horror creeping in. "She was preparing," Ross confirmed. "But we believe she was planning something bigger. Something beyond just running with your son." My stomach churned. This wasn't just about money or revenge. It was something far worse. "Where is she now?" "She's still in custody," Price assured me. "But Tyler's deal means his trial is being expedited. Depending on how things go, he could be out within the year." I clenched my fists. "He's not coming near Max." Ross nodded. "That's where we'll need your help. If you're willing to testify, we can ensure he never sees freedom." My head spun, but there was no decision to make. "I'll do it." The next few weeks were a blur of court hearings and legal battles. I testified against Tyler, exposing every rotten thing he'd ever done. His lawyer tried to paint him as a victim, manipulated by Lily's calculating genius. But no jury would believe it. His record spoke for itself. But Lily, she played the long game. Her lawyer spun a twisted tale of love and desperation, framing her as a woman trapped by an abusive partner, forced into crime to protect her child. She wept convincingly on the stand, her green eyes shimmering with carefully crafted regret. For a moment, even I felt a pang of doubt. Had I missed something? Then, during cross-examination, Daniel dropped the bombshell. He produced surveillance footage from a hidden camera Tyler hadn't known about, recorded 2 months before their arrest. In the grainy video, Lily's entire demeanor shifted from fragile to ruthless. She berated Tyler, barking orders about transferring funds and threatening to burn it all down if he messed up. The jury's sympathy evaporated in an instant. When the verdict came down, guilty on all counts, Lily didn't cry. She didn't scream or beg. She just smiled. A cold, knowing smile that chilled me to the bone. As the guards led her away, she whispered something to me, her lips barely moving. "You'll never be free of me." The words echoed in my mind long after she disappeared through the courtroom doors. The nightmare was supposed to be over, but deep down, I knew it was just beginning. Life after the trial was supposed to be a fresh start, but it felt more like living in the aftermath of a storm. Max and I moved to a new town, far from the memories and wreckage Lily had left behind. I landed a stable job managing logistics for a shipping company, and Max adjusted well to his new school. He was resilient in a way I couldn't explain, though I wondered if he sensed how tightly I was holding everything together. For a while things were okay, routine, peaceful even, but late at night, when the world went quiet, I could still hear Lily's voice. "You'll never be free of me." At first, I dismissed it as leftover trauma, a psychological scar that would fade over time. But then the letters started arriving. The first was handwritten on thick, expensive paper. No return address. Just 4 chilling words scrawled in Lily's neat, familiar handwriting. "Did you miss me?" I burned the letter, telling myself it was a sick prank. Maybe someone from the trial looking for a twisted thrill. But 2 weeks later, another arrived. "You can't hide forever." My heart pounded as I read it, fingers trembling. I reported it to the police, but without a clear sender, there wasn't much they could do. Lily was locked away in a maximum security prison. Wasn't she? One evening, while packing Max's soccer bag, I found something stuffed into his backpack. A small, worn teddy bear. It wasn't his. He hadn't played with stuffed animals in years. I asked him where it came from. "A lady gave it to me after practice," he said innocently. "She said she used to know you." Cold terror gripped my chest. "What did she look like?" Max shrugged. "She had sunglasses on, but she smiled like mommy." My knees buckled, and I barely made it to the couch. This wasn't just harassment, it was a message. A reminder that even from behind bars, Lily still had reach. I pulled every string I could to contact Detective Price. She met me at a coffee shop 2 towns over, dressed in casual clothes but with the same intense, no-nonsense energy. After listening carefully, she leaned back, processing what I'd told her. "She's in prison," Price confirmed. "I checked personally after you called." "Then how?" I demanded. "The letters, the bear." "She has friends," Price interrupted. "People she manipulated, like Tyler. Just because she's locked up doesn't mean she's powerless." A wave of helpless rage surged through me. What am I supposed to do? Wait for her next move? "No," Price said firmly. "We build a case. Every letter, every encounter, we track it all. And Ethan, you need security. For you and Max." I upgraded the house's security system, installed cameras, and never let Max out of my sight. He thought it was all a game, pretending to be spies. It killed me inside, forcing my son to live in a world where danger lurked in every shadow. Despite the precautions, the letters continued. Always brief, always cruel. Sometimes they were just single words. "Soon. Watch." The final letter came 6 months later. No words this time. Just a photo of Max playing in the backyard, taken from somewhere deep in the woods behind our house. I knew without a doubt she was coming. The night it happened, I was ready. Max was staying with a trusted neighbor for a sleepover. I sat alone in the dark, gun in hand, every muscle taut with anticipation. Hours passed. Midnight, then 2 a.m. silence. I started to believe I was wrong, that the paranoia had finally broken me, until I heard a soft creak near the back door. I moved silently, heart pounding, adrenaline sharpening every sense. The lock clicked, and the door eased open. A shadow slipped inside, deliberate, patient. Before they could take another step, I hit the lights and raised my gun. "Freeze!" Lily stood there, dressed in black, her eyes cold and glittering. She didn't flinch, didn't even seem surprised. "Ethan," she said softly, almost warmly, "you're still predictable." "Hands up," I ordered, voice steady despite the terror roaring in my chest. "You're done." Her lips curled into that familiar, icy smile. Am I? Before I could react, a sudden force hit me from behind. Someone else, strong and fast. We crashed to the floor, my gun skidding across the hardwood. I twisted, kicking out blindly, connecting with flesh. My attacker grunted and staggered back. A wiry man with a scar across his jaw. Tyler. He lunged again, but I grabbed a nearby lamp, smashing it against his head. He crumpled with a groan. Blood trickled down his temple, but he was still breathing. I spun back toward Lily, just in time to see her reaching for my gun. I tackled her, pinning her to the floor, my forearm pressed against her throat. You've already lost, she hissed, struggling beneath me. You think this ends here? Sirens blared in the distance. My neighbor must have seen something and called the cops. Lily thrashed, but she was trapped. This time, I growled, tightening my grip. You don't get to run. By the time the police arrived, it was over. Lily and Tyler were dragged away in cuffs, this time for good. I watched them vanish into the back of a patrol car, battered but alive. As dawn broke, I finally allowed myself to exhale. Max was safe. We were safe. But even as the morning light poured through the shattered back door, I couldn't shake the lingering certainty deep in my bones. Lily would never stop. Thank you for watching. What would you do in Ethan's place? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more thrilling stories.